Infrasound is the waves of the brain that connect with the waves, the human resonance, and human resonance now is going faster than before. But the frequencies and the waves of our voice are the size of our body. If we open our legs, women maybe have a wave that goes from the legs to around the legs. It will be 70 hertz, 70 cycles per second. Men maybe could go down to 50 cycles per second. So then the other waves, 100, 200 cycles per second, are like the sizes of our organs, our muscles, our bones. And then if we go up to thousands, then it's the veins and the other different smaller structures. So actually sound is responsible for form. Sound is responsible for the shape and to keep the things in shape, meanwhile light and color is responsible for chemistry that you all know. So then what I am looking for is to find out the harmonic signature of the voice, which recognizes the specific tone of the voice of a person. And that is what the frequencies that fit in our mouth. They're as big as our mouth, and the men or a woman with a big mouth could be 3,000 hertz. Or women could start in 4,000 hertz. So then that the waves that hit on the inside of our mouth, what makes the tone that recognizes the person is like the strings. The strings of many instruments are similar, but it's the guitar, the shape of the guitar that makes it sound like a guitar. So it's the shape of our mouth and a nasal cavity that makes the specific sound of frequencies of harmonics, because they're not the fundamental frequencies of our vocal cords. They're the higher frequencies that go into our mouth and into our nasal cavity. And then if we go higher, they go into all our brain structures and neurons. We can go into ultrasound. I actually have been also doing intensives. When I started to do research, I started to do intensives with dolphins. A lot of patients with cranial therapy and dolphin therapy. We did cranial therapy I don't have photos now, but we just put a lot of people with 2 therapists in the water, and everybody benefit from the ultrasound. What we know from the ultrasound is that the DNA needs to scan to recreate the RNA, and that as years go by, it needs to turn more to create this sound, and we start losing pairs of DNA. Look at this is a graphic that came out in the internet, but it seems to have been gone at this moment. But so then it means that ultrasound rejuvenates you, and that's what makes so intense the contact with the dolphins, even though now it's forbidden. I was doing these intensives of cranial work with sound research in Spain, in Tenerife, in the late 90s. So let's go to what is the connection between sound and light. So in this, we start with 200, in reality we have a problem with deciding which scales to use. This is the diatonic scale, the temporal scale, that is mostly used in the orchestras today and in most of our instruments. But if we would use another scale or a Hindu scale, it would change these numbers here. So I use this scale because it's the closest to the phi sacred geometry proportion, and actually it portrays from C to B. It's like from the Sun to Mercury is C. From Mercury to Venus is D, okay? So the last one is a longer range because it's from Jupiter to Saturn, which is B. So if we take 261 hertz and we multiply it 32 times by 2, we go up octaves, this is what physicists do, we get to cyan green. And So then, and the 311, which suppose in this scale is D sharp, we would go to indigo. So what I use in voice analysis is just the opposite, because we were trying to, we are using absorbed color instead of radiated color. This is radiated color. We were just trying to decipher, when I did the course this other day, that you guys use a lot of green yellows. And I find that I don't find people that need green yellow. But in reality, what I'm doing is the opposite. I am giving them red for them to produce green yellow. You're doing homeopathy of light. I am doing really very shocking experience of light by putting the prism in the sun and putting the light, the color they need, into their eyes. 2 minutes blinking, then 2 minutes darkness, 2 minutes blinking. I've only done this with these cranial therapy intensives where I had all these cranial therapists because the reactions were enormous. You'll see some of them, I'll talk about them. The reactions could, the healing is really fast. One cannot do it with a person that is not really ill. Or at least I wouldn't do that, but I haven't done it. I've done it a lot myself, but alone, but I haven't done it unless I had my whole group of cranial therapists in a clinical intensive, so that next morning we know how that person was, and we will do cranial work and balance them. So I'll talk about that too, but I think that the reason why, in reality, what you are using is the emission of color, and what I'm doing is the opposite. In the voice analysis is turned so that it's not complicated. In reality, when we say you're missing red, in reality they're missing blue-green, turquoise, okay? So what we're doing is that in the voice analysis, they're seeing easily what you're supposed to be missing in the absorbed color. But what we're doing is we are provoking the body to react and produce it by itself by photoisomerization, which I would like to know more about, of what you think, how it is that we have one color exposed and then we immediately produce this other color, the complementary color, intensely, as well as the after images is something very interesting me. I've researched so much, but I am a completely self-taught person, so I might give you ideas, but I don't have ways to know technically or scientifically why it happens. So maybe you can help me too. So this, you see, this is the relationships we find, and this is, of course, the C. When you see here do or do, this is because in Spanish they will not use C and D. In Spain, they still is really the only country they Spain, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. They, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. This is the way they say the notes. So this is, it's done in both. So just pay attention to the first, because this is what you are used to. So this is what the organs and the meridian system at the end. Then they are complementary meridians and complementary organs. What I will tell you is how I came up with the meridians. Studying light and joining the yin-yang with Johann Goethe, I'll tell you in a little bit. So then we see here the relationships that we have of organs with colors and meridians. So here they have the rest of the colors. So the top one is the radiated color, and the bottom is the absorbed color. So what we want is the person to have of all the colors, to be able to talk with all the musical notes. And this is an analysis where I ask them to talk a different, see if talking about a different subject, they can change their voice. If you hear a change in the voice, maybe you don't really hear it, and it does have a slight change in the voice analysis. But this is when they talk plain voice, as non-emotional as possible. And this is when you ask them to talk about something that saddens them or depresses them, or they lose energy. And this is when they talk about something that gives them energy, that they feel more enthusiastic, or at least more happy about. So this is a normal analysis. You will not get exactly the same this is 50 seconds or a minute. You have changes, but the missing notes mostly is the 3 missing notes are normally the same, and very difficult to change, unless you change radically or you really you can change. If you can change it because you can have a voice that's really happy at certain moments, then you can give it. How much are you like that, no, during the day? So this is a voice that has excess of red. Of course, here in the top it has more imbalance than the one in the bottom, as you can see. These cases, in this case, you know that I'm giving the absorbed colors, the opposite than the complementary from the irradiated color. So this person has tendency for kidney